Hello, we're going to talk about the 9/11 bombings and their conspiracy theories on it. We decided to make this topic for our real life situation because we believe it's very interesting and very impactful for the lives of many Americans and many people around the world. The real situation for 9/11 bombings. The bombings of Al Qaeda in the United States, better known as 9/11, has had several conspiracy theories. For example, if the United States government funded Al Qaeda, or if the 9/11 bombings did not happen at all, if the planes were fake and the bombs were set up in the buildings beforehand. We personally believe that the United States government did actually fund Al Qaeda, but in a discreet way, where it wasn't given money to them directly, but actually indirectly. This is significant to us because it is a topic that is very interesting and a topic full of conspiracies theories where several conclusions are made. The extraction. A conclusion for this real situation is that despite all the conspiracy theories, we believe that 9/11 did happen. The United States did fund Al Qaeda indirectly. A question: to what extent does language from authority play a role in justification? Extraction. Okay. Possible associated theory of knowledge concepts. We believe that some concepts are beliefs, justification, authority, evidence, experience, interpretation. Possible associated walks and AOKs. Obviously, ethics, history, indigenous knowledge systems, sense perception, emotion, that's a big one. Last but not least, reason. Or knowledge question. To what extent does language from authority play a role in justification? That's another question. I'm going to pass the presentation to my partner of the project, Estefania Matamoros. She will explain the structures and many interesting facts.
Us about our topic. So now we will be going to structure number 1. So the first structure we did is language from authority manipulates people's beliefs to a great extent, unbelieving what they want to believe. Since people are heavily influenced on what the authority says, and most of the times believes the authority knows what they are doing, they would believe and trust them. A very good example referencing to history on how someone has used language to manipulate the belief of people is Adolf Hitler. Through various speeches to the German people, Hitler was able to completely change their ideologies and make Germany one of the biggest empires in the world. So we basically decided to get Adolf Hitler because he manipulated people in his speeches, and people decided to believe him and think that what he was saying was true. And we can see that there were later consequences for the people's decisions. So our research. And our research is basically on language from authority. So we can see how language is made of signs, gestures, symbols, images, objects, with meanings that are combined with a set of rules for the purposes of communication, the formulation of ideas, storage of knowledge, or as medium of thought. Language as well enables us to acquire knowledge from another people, as we can see in Adolf Hitler. Which we can see in this example since people acquire their knowledge and research from the person who is in authority. And we basically can see how people acquire knowledge from another people in many other things. And recently we could see that in Donald Trump. So we decided to put some biases, and one of them was ambiguity. Using double meanings or ambiguities of language to mislead or misrepresent the truth. Appeal to authority, saying that because an authority thinks something, it must therefore be true. Bandwagon, appealing to popularity or the fact that many people do something as an attempt form of validation. Our counterclaim. So the claim we decided to put was, even though language from authority can manipulate people into believing their ideologies, individuals still have their own reasoning. Although most of the people do follow what the authority says and does, some people still think and act in their own way. A very good example for this would be with Donald Trump and his view on Latinos, specifically Mexicans. Although many people do follow what he says, there are several people around the world who completely disagree with what he says, and several countries don't like the US for Trump's decisions. So we can see how some people don't agree with Donald Trump. So they don't like side with the thing that language from authority can manipulate them, since they have the reasoning and they can reason that what he is saying is not like truth or is not valid for, or even it's not good for them. Our research we did on this was, authority doesn't always mean someone famous. Authority can be your teacher, your coach, your parents, your older sibling. Knowledge from authority is not always credible, because they can try to persuade you into thinking in a wrong way or give you the wrong guidance in life. While people tend to believe that an authority automatically knows better than them, having your own reasoning is still important. As theoryofknowledge.net states, reasoning is the power of mind to think, understand, and form judgments logically. This is very important because being able to form your own judgment and your own decisions based on what people have told you makes you someone more dependent and ready for life. So this was my part, and now we will head to structure number 2, which Miguel will explain it.
So, moving on to structure 2. The claim. Belief and evidence play to a great extent a role in sense perception. To explain this better, our beliefs and the evidence we see around us has an immense effect on our senses. For example, how our body perceives information. For example, Area 51. This is a very good example for this, because people view this place and they already have a sense of what it is based on the evidence that we have seen throughout the years about this place. For example, evidence that we have seen in the news, or evidence that we have seen in books or in interviews. Now, our research. According to prior expectations and theories, we view sense perception as a way of how our body interprets the world. Personal experience has a lot to do with our knowledge, and our senses sometimes trick us. Our assumptions and prejudgments guide our perceptions. interpretations, and more than can be visioned. Now, here we found some biases. For example, the confirmation bias. This is when you favor things that confirm your existing belief. And we also found the belief bias. This is when a conclusion supports that if a conclusion supports your existing belief, then you will rationalize anything that supports it. Now, going on to our counterclaim. So, the claim for this is although sense perception is influenced by our beliefs and evidence, interpretation can make us distort information, either in a good way or a bad way. To better explain this, this is when people interpret information, like how people interpret information is very crucial because this can determine like the declaration of wars or just more normal things that happen in a daily life. A very good example of this is in the Cold War when the United States and the Soviet Russia were fighting to see who could develop a better technology to go to the moon. So here, Khrushchev made a statement in Russian, and when translated to English, it didn't sound as good, and the American newspapers misinterpreted and thought it was a threat against the United States, causing the US to get extremely worried about this statement. In reality, the statement wasn't very threatening at all. The problem was that Khrushchev used a very colloquial Russian that was native to his little city. So when translated to English, it didn't really fit what it really meant. Now the research for the counterclaim. As to contrary belief, interpretation of information is sometimes what generally concludes the information we pass on. Interpretation is the way in which humans perceive and explain information. The information around us is not always clear in the sense that everyone can understand it at first sight. Humans can interpret information in several different ways since everyone has their own reasoning and a justification.
Conclusion. In conclusion, language from authority manipulates people's belief to a great extent on believing what they want them to believe. Although sense perception is influenced by our beliefs and evidence. Interpretation can make us distort information either in a good way or in a bad way. We can now see how language from authority plays a role in justification, since we are the ones that need to believe if what a person with authority is saying, meaning that if you don't agree with the person, your reasoning is what will tell you that in order to stop following the person or their ideologies. We can see this in Adolf Hitler's speeches and how he manipulates people into believing what he says. We can also believe that with evidence, our questions are going to be answered. For example, in Area 51, and how people believe what is happening there is true. And it's all based on evidence taken from the people that know to a certain point about this. Now, older people would disagree with our conclusions because they have seen and heard much more than us teens. Also, people who are from different cultures than us would also have a different perspective than us.
So now to connect to our knowledge question to two real life situations. Our answer to our knowledge question can be applied to the Area 51 case and the secret societies that supposedly control the world, like the Skull and Bones, or the Freemasons, or the famously Illuminati. Both of these real life situations apply to our answer to the knowledge questions because they are very controversial topics. That authority plays a huge role in what people believe. Both of these real life situations apply to history as in AOK, and they use very similar walks and TOK concepts like sense perception, emotion and reason, belief, justification, authority, evidence, and interpretation.